This Imaginarium Theater is actually easier than it looks, but only if you plan your teams properly. Most players are not going to fail because of damage, they are going to fail because they use the wrong teams at the wrong time. If you waste your strong characters too early, the latter bosses are going to feel much harder than they actually are. So in this video, we'll walk through the easiest paths, which enemies to pick, how to use your blessings properly, and how to clear this reset consistently. This cycle uses Hydro, Cryo, and Geo. Because of that, this season heavily favors freeze teams and lunar crystallized setups. So characters like Skirk and strong Hydro cores are going to perform really well. You don't need perfect builds for this reset, just need stable teams that can keep applying elements consistently. The enemies in this reset also focus a lot on Hydro application, healing, and shielding. So this is not a reset where you just burst everything instantly. This is a reset where fighting becomes easier when you understand the mechanic. If your team is stable, you will clear. If your team is greedy, you will struggle later. Before we go into the acts, you need to understand the blessing system. This is where a huge part of your damage actually comes from. A lot of players ignore this and just pick random updates. That makes their runs much harder than they need to be. There are three main blessing paths: Cryo Crystallize, Frozen, and Hydro Crystallize. Each one supports a different type of team. If you pick the wrong one, your damage will feel very low later. If you pick the right one, your run becomes much smoother. If you are running a freeze team, just go the Frozen blessing path. This is the most consistent option and it scales very well across all stages. You can take other paths if you want, but Frozen is the safest choice. If you are running Geo teams, go Cryo Crystallize first, then transition into Hydro Crystallize if needed. If you are running Lunar or Zibai setup, go Hydro Crystallize first. That path has the best scaling for those teams. There is one upgrade you should always look for: the AoE Cryo and Hydro option. Try to get to it as soon as possible. It gives consistent extra damage and helps you clear faster. This is especially important in multi-enemy stages. Another common mistake is picking stats that don't match your team. For example, if your Geo DPS scales with defense, attack bonus doesn't help much, and there is a blessing under the Hydro Crystallize that gives you an attack bonus. Do not choose that. Always match your blessing to your team. That's how you get consistent runs. Now for the opening characters, we have Mona, Xingqiu, Wraithly, Rosaria, Navia, and Kachina. These trial characters are level 90 with talent level at 888 and are decently built with C0 constellations. So if your own characters are not better, just use provided ones. A lot of players underestimate the trial units, but they are actually good enough. Wraithly and Navia are your strongest carries here. They can handle both early and mid stages very comfortably. Mona and Xingqiu are your most flexible enablers. They allow you to build consistent teams across multiple acts. The biggest mistake here is using your best carries too early. You want to save at least one strong team for later, because the difficulty spike happens in the second half. For special guest stars, we have Chaska, Sukrosky, and Lauma. This gives you access to more team options like Hex and Circle and Lunar Bloom. If your account supports those teams, they can make certain stages much easier, but again, don't use them too early unless you need to. Now the main bosses in this reset are the Emperor of Fire and Iron, the Radiant Moongecko, the Gold Flame Kokusar Tyrant, and the Primo Geovishap. Each boss requires a specific set of mechanics to be able to defeat them. And if you understand those mechanics, the entire run becomes easier. Starting with Act 1, you can choose between Ruin Machines and Bishops. You should pick the Ruin Machines. They are predictable and don't force you into specific elements. The Bishops can look simple, but they move a lot and waste time. That makes your runs less consistent. This is a free stage. You should not use strong units here. This is where you save resources and not spend them. A simple 4-star freeze team works perfectly here. For Act 2, you choose between Fatui and Phantom with Golems. Pick the Fatui. They don't have annoying shields and are easy to burst down. The other option becomes slow if your damage is not high enough. This is another stage where players overcommit strong teams. You don't need to do that here. Use something simple and move on. Act 3 is the Emperor of Fire and Iron. This is your first boss and is a mechanic check. You need to remove the Pyro Shield. Once the shield is gone, the boss becomes much easier. If you ignore the mechanic, the fight feels slow and tanky. That's where most players struggle. If your other teams are weak, you can use a stronger Hydro unit here. Otherwise, just play the mechanic properly. Act 4 is a defense stage. Pick the Nobushi option. This stage is about controlling enemies, not killing them fast. If enemies reach the objective, you lose progress quickly. So grouping and control are very important here. If you don't control enemies, the stage becomes chaotic, but if you do, it becomes very easy. From this point onward, your resource management becomes important. This is where many runs start to fall apart. Act 5. Pick the geo enemies. Do not pick Rift Towns. Rift Towns drain your HP and force you to use healing. That is a problem because you need healing later. If you waste your sustain here, Act 6 becomes much harder. The geo enemies are tankier, but they are safe. This is a stage where you should play conservatively. Act 6 is the Radiant Moongecko. This is the first real difficult spike. This boss is not about damage, it's about understanding mechanics. If you get trapped, you must heal to full HP to escape. If you don't, you lose time and damage opportunities. When it prepares this attack, it leaves an anchor. You must destroy the anchor. If you do, you cancel the attack and get a damage window. If you ignore it, the fight becomes much slower. This is why many players struggle here. They don't play the mechanic properly. This is one of the few stages where healing is required. So this is where you use your sustain units. Act 7 consistently drains your HP. This is a survivability check. If your team has no sustain, you will struggle here. This stage punishes greedy damage teams. So bring shields or healing. Play safely and consistently. Act 8 is the Gold Flame Kukusar Tyrant. This is an execution check. The boss flies and creates a phaser. You must destroy the phaser using Hydro before it dives. If you fail this, you lose your damage window. That makes the fighting feel long and difficult. But if you do it correctly, the boss is actually very easy. So this is not a damage problem, it's a mechanic problem. Act 9 is a bounty stage. This is a simple damage and efficiency check. Pick the easier objective, clear it cleanly and move on. This is not a stage where you need to overthink. Now for the first Arcane challenge. This is a survival stage. You don't need to kill everything. You just need to stay alive until the timer ends. Enemies will keep spawning and defeating them reduces the timer. But the main threat here is not the enemies. It's the geo bursts that constantly hit your character. That deal steady damage over time and can catch you off guard. So this stage is more about survivability than damage. Bring shields if possible. Shields are very powerful here because they help you ignore the geo damage. You can also use sustain teams, but don't overcommit your based units. This is a good stage to use weaker characters with survivability. The enemies are mixed types, so don't try to counter everything. Just focus on staying alive and avoiding unnecessary damage. If you play safely, this stage is very manageable. For the second Arcane stage, Freeze is very strong. The main mechanic is breaking armor before it stacks. If you ignore that, enemies become harder to deal with. If you handle it properly, the stages are easy. Finally, Act 10 is the Primo Geovishap. This is the final team check. The key mechanic is shields. When the boss uses its big attack, shields reflect the damage back. If you don't have a shield, you take the damage instead. This is why some players struggle here. They don't bring the right setup, so bring a shield. This is where you use your best remaining team. Overall, this reset is moderately difficult. The challenge is not damage, it's planning and execution. The biggest mistake are wasting strong units early, ignoring mechanics, and picking the wrong blessings. If you manage your resources properly and play around the mechanics, this reset becomes very manageable. Thank you for watching this video, like and subscribe for more content like this, and have a great day.